Hey, everybody, this is Perch. Let's read this mail. The Blue Sky Brigade. Okay. It says, Mark, there's no Perch greeting. There's no funny name. There's nothing. The guy just goes right into it. It says, Mark Brooks has me blocked on Twitter. By the way, you know, I grant, look, I understand. So please don't waste time with the, no, you don't understand Perch. No, I understand. These are creators who are, drawing books, and in some cases, people you admired, people who you picked up a comic book. And for a lot of people who use the bots, it's people who you've never acted with, other than you go into a comic store and you pick up a comic. You're like, wow, who's this? Mark Brooks, Gleb Melnikov. That guy sounds good. Oh, Dan Slott, never heard of this guy before. Let me buy this comic, and then you take it home and you read it, and you're like, oh, okay, this one didn't have Paul in it. It's good. And you you go on Twitter to go look up this guy, and you discover you're blocked. And you're like, what the hell? I never even heard or thought of this guy before today. And that's when you realize that you were following, one of the baddies, and then they run a block bot against, the baddies, and then you are also blocked. You never interacted with it, and it feels like a betrayal. I've explained this exact story exactly as I just said it to creators who are like, but they don't have nobody has just a right to see inside our lives. So why would it feel like a betrayal? You have a right to just, access to me whenever you want. Well, yes and no. First of all, of course, nobody has a right, if you say it that way, to anything like that. You don't have a right, to just to see that stuff. But Twitter and social media is a public discourse forum. And when you put stuff out for the public to see, it's kind of like if you went to your house and you put a big sign outside your house that said, I don't know, whatever, just some wonderful words of wisdom from you. But then you had a sheet, and then some of the cars, you're like, I don't like to look at that car. So you just would hide that from some of the public, but then other people got to see it. It would feel like, again, it's your yard. You have the right to do that, but it's weird. It doesn't feel good. And it feels very selective, and it's douchey. And in an industry where you're trying to bring people into your work, yeah, that's how it lands. And then Twitter doesn't help any with the language. You've been blocked. It's not like, hey, this dude here has just decided that he wants to have fewer people looking at his stuff, and unfortunately, you didn't get a ticket to that party, and sorry about that, man. But here's some other people who might want to follow instead. It doesn't say that. It's like, you're blocked, motherfucker. It's it doesn't say that part, but it's just there. So we'll get back to the mail in a second. But so I understand. At the same time, it's probably good to stop putting so much of your energy into Mark Brooks or people like that. If you feel it, yes, it stings. Yes, it's surprising, especially if you didn't see it coming. You're like, when the hell did this happen? Again, I never interacted with the guy, but that's on them. That's not on you. And I think by putting energy into it, they have blocked. They're not seeing you angry. They've moved on, and it's just hurting you. So there's really, you just got to let it go. You just got to go, okay, it's not going to, I've got other things to worry about. I'm not going to worry about the fact that, my account got blocked. And then you create a second account. And with that second account, you do this. You're basically going to catfish the guy. So you're going to, over the course of many months, you're slowly, comment. First, you're just going to like all of this person's posts. You have a brand new account. You haven't been blocked yet. Don't follow the baddies, because then you're going to get caught again. But follow the other good. Like, probably go follow Stephen King and George Takei and Brooklyn Dad, and then you just start liking posts. Don't comment anything. So this won't take much. And then over the next several weeks, just every now and then, go, man, you're a great artist. And then over time, you gain their trust. Slowly but surely, you gain their trust. And then one day you're like, hey, I'm coming to the con. I'd love to buy some of your art. And, maybe get a DM at that point. Like, well, I'm going to be at this table. Come on by to buy some art. And then you go to buy that art. And that's when, no, I'm just kidding. I'll let you finish that. I could go dark very quickly. I'm serious. But I say it for this point. The amount of energy some people have put in, not this letter writer, but some people have put into complaining about being blocked. You could put that same energy into creating an alternate account and basically gaining these people's trust and maybe even arrange to meet them on a date if you want to go that far with it, and then just pull the rug out from under them and laugh in their face. Like it would be less energy to do that. Turn that betrayal upside down. That's what I say. This is terrible advice. Don't do anything I'm saying. All right. Anyway, it says Mark Brooks has me blocked on Twitter. I mean, it's kind of a plus for you, to be honest, if you read that feed. I don't know. You can get those shitty variant covers anywhere. His art's fine, but it also looks it looks like it would be easily replicated by AI. Like that. Nothing against him, but well, I mean, I guess it's something against him. I feel like his covers will be the first to be replaced by AI because they look like they're already AI to some extent. All right. All right, back to the mail. It says, I found out, sorry for that diversion. I found that out when I scrolled up a thread and it turned out that he'd blocked me. I must have said something that offended him, but I don't think that we've ever interacted. To be honest, I'm still not 100% sure who he is. He seems to be a comic book artist who works for Marvel. I'm really not sure what he's done. Covers. As nearly as I can tell, I am a dream comic book customer. I make a nice living and I have 2 kids. I'll buy a $150 omnibus sight unseen because one of my kids shows sudden interest in a character or based on a random comment by Brian Cronin at CSBG. You are the dream customer, my friend. Come shop at my store. I'm still selling comics. I don't know why. I mean, well, anyway, that's a video for another time. I don't. Stop. They shouldn't be sending me comics. So weird. All right. Anyway, yeah, fair enough. By the way, to your question of you don't think you've ever interacted, you haven't. But are you following like Eric July? Are you following that guy? You're following somebody, and then they run a bot that basically blocks all the people who follow, somebody they don't like. That's what's going on. Anyway, as nearly as I can tell, sorry, I reread that part. Hell, I buy comics that I don't read from creators who are nice to me on social media. But this Mark Brooks person has me blocked. Dozens of creators have left my preferred platform in a huge huff over the election. I didn't like the result either, but that doesn't make Elon Musk the Antichrist. He didn't vote the way that I did. Who cares? I don't think that I am part of a toxic cesspool, and nobody ever does until one day. No, honestly, I think a lot of comic book fans are like me, middle-aged guys who start reading from a spinner rack in a liquor store. What were you doing in a liquor store when you were a kid? The spinner rack in the liquor store. Like, I got the gas station and the grocery store, but like, I'm 8 years old. I got to go get my pack of smokes and a bottle of Hennessy because I'm classy that way, and I'm going to pick up some comics from the spinner rack. Why don't liquor stores have comics? Actually, in all seriousness, if you put a comic book rack in Total Wine or Specs, I hate Specs, by the way. That cartoon bunny, just don't want to punch that thing right in the face. Anyway, if you put a comic book rack there, I'll bet you'd sell a lot of comics because I'll bet there are a lot of kind of middle-aged men who are now going to a liquor store to, help deal with the crushing sadness of life. And they're like, fuck it, I'll buy a comic, trying to remember when I was a kid. I'll bet you'd, I'll bet that would make money, to be honest. I'll bet it would. Anyway. Liquor store. I have more spare money than free time. My hunch is that our revenue stream into reprints is significant in terms of keeping the comic publishers viable. If another issue of, say, Spider-Man is never published, then that's a pretty minor event in my life. My guess is that Marvel or DC outsourcing their comic production to Korea or AI might be a bigger deal for them. Yeah, probably. Anyway, love your YouTube channel. I hope that you're in good health. Enjoy the holidays. I'm in terrible health, but I hope you enjoy the holidays too, sir. Look, I think what you're saying is you said it very well, and I apologize for putting in so many kind of random comments and jokes into the middle of it because I think you said it very straightforward. And there are a decent amount of comic creators who listen to this channel, and I always want them to hear your perspective, to hear that perspective, because it's a legitimate perspective that hits on 2 levels. One, unless you're you left out the paragraph, you're like, and the other thing I do on Twitter is I post dirty memes that people I don't like. Generally you sound like a normal person, which is what most, people on these platforms are. If you go to Twitter, the algorithm is going to, suggest, tweets for you, and the people who are the most insane also tend to tweet the most. So the volume of what you see will be made up by more crazy people, or people just fighting. And unfortunately, indie comics and crowdsourcing, I've got a bunch of mails on that, but I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Um, there, for whatever reason, the crowdfunding indie comic scene has gotten to its head that, drama is critical to keeping the business going. And so we're just going to shit post at each other and do live streams where we tear each other apart and all that kind of shit as a way to kind of build this industry. And I just think that's insane. But, hey, if I guess that's the market you're going for, then more power to you. But, nobody's reading those comics. Anyway, I think most of the people online, and I'm not talking about the creators, the fans are just like, they're there to look at some art. Like look at when Walt Simonson or Mark Brooks will post something. I think Walt Simonson just went off to Blue Sky. Unfortunately, I mean, that's a shitty part of this migration to Blue Sky is you've got comic creators who, are pretty just posted art, and you have a bunch of fans who are like, I like to see art. There's a Twitter account called, I think, Cool Comic Art or something along those lines. There's also the Spinner Rack is a Twitter you should follow. And all that thing does is it publishes comics from the past. Like here are covers from the past. Like on this day, here's what was in the stores. And you look at it and it's getting hundreds of likes and comments from fans who are like, I like comics. Show me more comics. And that's the majority of fans. They're not in the midst of all this kind of crap. So I want the creators to hear letters like yours because that's the majority of people are like that. And I've explained this too, and it is absolutely true. If you went on Twitter and you followed, say, an Eric July or an Ethan Van Sciver, and the latter is even more likely, like here's the path. You're not on Twitter. You come onto Twitter. You are a middle-aged man who has a life and a job and kids, and you're buying comics like I do. My kids, I am suckered into the same thing. They're like, hey, that V for Vendetta thing. My older daughter, she's 14, and she's like, that V for Vendetta. We were talking about that a little bit in class, and that seemed interesting. I'm like, fuck it, I'll buy you a hardcover right now. Like, poof, it appears. And like an idiot, right? And then she doesn't really care. With manga, for sure. Anything she shows a hint of interest in that's reading that doesn't have to do with a tablet, I buy. And so I'm pouring money out on these bastard children. I'm just kidding. They know who their father is. I mean, we hope, right? I have to have a conversation with Mrs. Perch later. Anyway, that's the majority of fans. And so when they come on Twitter, like again, this is a real life example. You come on Twitter, you liked the Grant Morrison X-Men. And I've talked to several people who give you they give me this exact story. This is a made up story. And they go on Twitter and they follow Mark Miller. Sorry, not Mark Miller. What am I thinking? They follow Grant Morrison. I always get those two mixed up. All right. Well, Mark has definitely blocked me now. Anyway, they follow Grant Morrison, or they try to. He's a wizard, And then they go and they try and find Frank Quietly, and they fail. And then they look for and then they're just running down the creators on this omnibus they're holding in their hands, and they hit Ethan Van Sciver, who did some art for some of those, and they follow him. And the first thing they see is like, hey, buy this Frog comic. And they're like, nobody really thinks about that when you're following. And generally, when you follow someone, Twitter will say, here's like 3 more people, and it's trying to learn from you. So it's like, oh, you followed Ethan Van Sciver, follow Dale Killen, and it's like, oh, that guy drew Pitt once upon a time when I was a kid. Okay, and so you follow him, and then while you're doing this and you're just following all these creators, you are not involved in any feuds. You don't understand any of that. You don't care about any of that. You've never heard of any of these YouTube streams. You're just literally like following comic artists because that's what a lot of comic fans do. And I've heard this story multiple times from people in the shop. And then, then you find out you're blocked by like a ton of different comic creators. Like, well, how'd that happen? Well, what happened was they ran the bot against all the people following an Ethan Van Sciver because they're in the blood feud with him. And you had no idea about all of a sudden you're blocked, and you're like, well, what the fuck do I do now? And then maybe in some cases with a few people, they're like, I then realized that I didn't like Ethan Van Sciver. He was just arguing with people on Twitter, so I unfollowed him, but I don't get unblocked. So now I'm not welcome over there, and I'm still blocked over here. And it's not like Mark Brooks or Gail Simone or anybody's gonna like go through and like, I think I'll address who I've blocked every couple weeks to just make sure that I didn't accidentally catch some innocent fans up in this mix. They've moved on with their lives, right? And so this happens a lot. And so all that does, though, is the people who are blocked take it personally, because how do you not take it personally? And then you don't want to spend money there. And then, you get enough of that going on, and you just start to get like a bitter taste in your mouth over the whole thing. And then, before long, you're not reading as many comics and you're not enjoying it. And for comic creators, then that revenue is gone. And then, and quite frankly, the group that this hits the most is that affluent kind of middle-aged man with or woman with a disposable income who's not buying comics anymore or buying less. And then you go to a comic convention and you talk to some of these people and they're like, yeah, I'm not getting as many visitors. I wonder why. And it's like, because the overall market is shrinking because people are just not buying comics. And then if you get people angry and bitter enough, and this is what, Dan Slott and to some extent Al Ewing, but Dan Slott would notoriously antagonize people. Like people would reach out and say, hey, you blocked me. I don't know why. And then he would like post a screen capture of the person asking us because you're an asshole. That's why. It's like, well, now I've gone from being annoyed at you to really hating you. And then before long, you make your way to YouTube and you find a bunch of, channels that are talking about how much the creators hate you. And they're like, yeah, they do. And then before long, you're not buying comics. You're listening to that stuff and you just hate everything. And the world's fucked. I'm just saying, this is what happens. So just think twice before you run those bots and block people, because in general, the vast majority of people are just kind of dinking along. Very, look, I certainly, when somebody comes at me and directly comes at me, I'll block them. I'm not on Twitter at all anymore now, but I would block them because it's like, okay, but it's like, you know what you did. Like there's no illusion. Nobody with a straight face can say, I don't know what I did. There's one guy, it's another YouTuber, and he sends me mail every, I don't know, infrequently. And he's like, why am I blocked? I'm like, because you went after, you called me an asshole and went after me over the course of like 3 months. And finally it was enough. Like you kept doing it. You called my friends, fakes and assholes. Like that's why. Anyway, but that's rare. Most people don't do that kind of stuff, and all you're doing is radicalizing them. Anyway, thank you very much for the mail. I hope some creators listen to it, because honestly, that's the problem. And they fled over to Blue Sky now, a lot of them. But if they don't think the problem is just going to reemerge there, they're crazy. It will. In fact, if anything, it's going to happen faster, because Blue Sky is going to, and nobody's going to have any patience for any of this stuff. They're going to go immediately into blocking there. Well, I don't know. Thanks for the mail, and thank all of you for listening.